The year is 1996, 1 year after the city of Southtown was thrown into chaos due to a widespread hunt for the mystical Jin Scrolls, 3 ancient scrolls that are rumoured to bestow immortality to the one who manages to collect them all. After managing to find 2 of the Jin Scrolls, the crime lord Geese Howard planned to obtain the last scroll by purposely spreading word of the scrolls being in Southtown, hoping that the rumour would lure its holder to the city and effectively bring the scrolls straight to Geese. The holders of the last scroll were Jin Chonshu and Jin Chonrei, the last 2 descendants of the Jin family that created the scrolls. The brothers fell into Geese's trap and brought the last scroll to Southtown with them, but also sent the legendary insane crime boss Ryuji Yamazaki into the city in their stead, leading to Yamazaki unleashing a wave of chaos upon Southtown. Eventually, Southtown's hero and the legendary hungry wolf Terry Bogard was able to defeat Yamazaki and the Jins, discovering in the process that the 2 brothers were actually possessed by the spirits of their ancestors who had wanted to use all 3 scrolls to gain new bodies and become immortal. However, Geese used the chaos of Terry's battle with the Jins to steal all 3 scrolls before fleeing back to Geese Tower, hoping to finally gain immortality and complete control of Southtown. To Geese's shock, however, he discovers shortly after collecting all 3 scrolls that they do not grant immortality as prophesized. After realizing that both his and the ancient Jin's plans for immortality were useless all along, Geese orders his loyal bodyguard Billy Khan to destroy the Jin Scrolls, no longer seeing them as being of any worth. Billy is reluctant to destroy the scrolls, preferring to keep them in the possession of the Howard connection even if they are seemingly useless. Geese stands his ground, however, and demands they be discarded, not willing to risk the chance of his enemies being able to use any secrets the scrolls may contain and use them against him, having no intention of repeating the same mistakes that led to his defeat 5 years ago. Billy finally agrees to discard the Jin Scrolls, allowing Geese to move on towards his goal of finally defeating the Bogards and regaining complete control of Southtown. To do this, Geese finalises the organisation of a new King of Fighters tournament, feeling that the timing of the tournament announcement coinciding with the rumours of his retrieval of the Jin Scrolls will be enough to remind the city that Geese is their only true ruler. With the invitations already sent out across both Southtown and to specific fighters from across the world, the lights of Geese Tower are finally turned on for the first time in 5 years, striking fear into the hearts of the people of Southtown as they realise that Geese Howard has finally made his return. With a new King of Fighters tournament hosted by Geese Howard himself announced, 16 competitors make their preparations to compete, with some entering the tournament of their own free will, while others are directly invited by the Howard connection. Having stayed behind in Southtown to wait for Geese to make his move, Terry Bogard is not surprised when he receives an invitation from the Howard connection inviting him to Geese's new tournament. Determined to finally take down Geese once and for all in order to allow Southtown to live in peace, Terry accepts the invitation and sets out to take part in the competition, leaving behind the young boy he had befriended the previous year in the process. Having remained in Southtown in order to ask Billy Khan's sister Lily out on a date, Joe Higashi puts his plans with her on hold upon the announcement of Geese's tournament, determined to help his fellow Lonely Wolves defeat Geese and free Southtown from his grip once and for all. However, Joe hopes deep down that Geese's defeat will also free Billy from being Geese's lackey and allow himself to date Lily without any repercussions, with him not understanding that Billy's loyalty to Geese as well as his hatred of the Lonely Wolves is actually genuine and not a result of any brainwashing done by Geese. Upon learning that Geese is alive, Andy Bogard decides to return to Southtown in order to take part in the tournament and defeat him. Though he still suffers from the injury he gained the previous year, Andy remains steadfast in his desire to enter the tournament no matter how much his fighting ability might be affected by the injury. Mai Shiranui once again accompanies Andy to Southtown to take part in the tournament, hoping to help him and the other Lonely Wolves finally put an end to Geese's evil schemes so that the two can return back to Japan in peace. Blue Mary makes her return to Southtown after hearing of Geese's tournament, determined to take the crime lord down as revenge for his murder of her grandfather, entering the tournament in order to do so. No longer working with the detective agency that had her investigate the Jin Scrolls the previous year due to them holding back information vital to the case, Mary soon meets up with Terry Bogard and agrees to partner up with him once again in order to ensure their scores with Geese are settled for good. Bob Wilson, the student of the capoeira master Richard Mayer and loyal bartender at Richard's Pow Pow Cafe nightclubs, has since led the Pow Pow Cafe 2 to great success after Richard made Bob the manager following the chaos in Southtown the previous year. When Geese's new tournament causes panic throughout the city, however, Bob enters the competition in order to help put an end to the ongoing chaos and restore peace to both the city and his master's beloved Pow Pow Cafe. After his defeat at the hands of Terry the previous year, Ryuji Yamazaki was swiftly arrested by Honfu and the police, who soon prepared for his immediate extradition to Hong Kong to face charges for his involvement in the country's drug ring. However, Yamazaki was able to free himself and escape from the police not long after being caught and quickly disappeared into Southtown. After spending his time in hiding, Yamazaki eventually hears of Geese's tournament and grows interested in taking part, hoping to use the chance to defeat Geese and regain the Jin Scrolls he lost to him the previous year. Furious at himself for having let Yamazaki escape after finally managing to capture him, Honfu also takes part in Geese's tournament after hearing word of Yamazaki's possible involvement, determined to capture him for good and make sure that he answers for his many crimes. After failing to find and destroy the Jin Scrolls the previous year, the Buddhist monk Sokaku Mochizuki makes his return to Southtown after hearing of Geese's tournament, still fearing that the forces of the powerful demigod Shuras are involved in the nature of the Jin Scrolls and that they must be destroyed for the sake of the world. Franco Bash, having spent the last year training for his return to kickboxing, decides to enter the tournament after his involvement with Yamazaki and rescue of his son inspired him to return to his former career as a champion. Now determined to prove to the world that he has what it takes to make his comeback, Franco enters the tournament with the support of his family and friends to show why he was undefeated in his previous run as the kickboxing champion of the world. After being freed from their ancestors' possession the previous year thanks to Terry Bogard, twin brothers Jin Chonshu and Jin Chonrei, now free to make their own choices in life, decide to take part in Geese's tournament in order to defeat him and take back their family scrolls, determined to make sure that no one can use their powers to rule the world like their ancestors had desired. Rick Stroud, a Native American boxer, decides to leave his hometown behind after spending 10 years taking part in boxing matches at a casino, unable to escape the feeling that his time spent as a showman has stifled his life and fighting prowess. With the wind calling him to journey across the world in search of strong opponents, Rick bids the casino and his lover behind and sets out into the wild, promising to both that he will return before the next casino title match. In Southtown, the Chinese-American fighting prodigy Li Zhangfei finds herself working in her uncle's restaurant as a waitress, having run away from her parents following an intense argument. Despite the rigorous training she has undergone since she was a young girl, Zhangfei's uncle forbids her from taking part in any serious tournaments or fights outside of the restaurant as a means of protecting her, though Zhangfei still serves as the restaurant's bodyguard, often dealing with attempted dine and dashes. However, the call of a new King of Fighters tournament proves to be too tantalizing for Zhang Fei, as she sneaks away from her uncle's restaurant to take part in the competition, determined to prove her strength across Southtown and the world. Among the competitors that come to Southtown to take part in the King of Fighters tournament, one fighter that is personally invited by Geese himself is the Taekwondo master and world champion Kim Kap-Wan. Kim accepts Geese's offer to take part in the tournament due to his desire to help and potentially fight his old friend and rival Terry Bogard, as well as prove to the people of Southtown that Taekwondo is the strongest fighting style in the world. As Kim makes his way to Southtown, he brings with him his two young sons, Kim Dong-hwan and Kim Jae-hoon, who accompany their father to all of his fights to cheer him on as he makes his way through the competition. Another fighter invited by Geese is Duck King, who makes his return to the King of Fighters tournament after a 5-year hiatus. Duck King also accepts Geese's invitation to take part in the tournament, happy to once again face his friend Terry in battle and show off his breakdancing martial arts style across Southtown. With all of the competitors gathered, the King of Fighters tournament officially kicks off as the fighters clash against each other across Southtown. Once the first few matches have taken place, Geese's henchmen tell their boss that Terry Bogard is currently the fighter that is the likeliest to become the champion, a report that Geese is not surprised by. As Terry continues to make his way through the tournament, he bears witness to a bizarre sight, an airplane that crashes into the desert. Upon investigating the crash, Terry is shocked to meet a young man named Alfred who soon challenges him to a friendly fight. Alfred is a keen pilot that is often joined by his mentor and co-pilot John, whose own aviation exploits have made him an icon in the eyes of the young Alfred. The two enjoy flying and adventuring together, getting into many hijinks and situations as they fly across the world. Though Alfred shows himself to be quite a strong fighter, he is still no match for Terry, who manages to defeat the young pilot and resume his journey through the tournament. Despite the odd interruption, however, Terry parts with Alfred and John on friendly terms, bidding the pair farewell before leaving them to continue their journey across the skies. As the tournament continues on and more fighters are eliminated from the competition, Geese dons his iconic fighting attire and stands atop his tower as he looks down at Southtown, beckoning Terry to come and face him. After defeating Yamazaki for the second time, Terry is soon met by Billy Khan, who eagerly awaits the opportunity to gain revenge for Terry's repeated attempts to take down the Howard connection. The two fight in a lengthy battle, but Terry is once again able to defeat Billy and advances on to the finals. After making his way to Geese Tower, Terry looks up at the mighty structure and makes his challenge to Geese known, with the crime lord anticipating finally putting an end to the meddling Bogards. Terry makes his way to the roof of Geese Tower and finally confronts Geese, with the two ready for their long-awaited rematch a year in the making. The two sworn enemies then clash in a legendary battle, with Terry once again being able to defeat Geese and win another King of Fighters tournament. Despite another loss, Geese once again rises to his feet and throws out a desperate raging blast, but Terry is able to launch a triple geyser of his own at his longtime enemy to counter it. However, the impact of the blast sends Geese plummeting off the roof of Geese Tower, echoing the conclusion to their first bout 5 years prior. This time, however, Terry is able to grab hold of Geese's arm to prevent him from falling, with Terry having no desire to see Geese die despite their sordid history together. Despite Terry's attempts to save Geese's life, however, the crime lord smacks Terry's hand away and lets himself plummet from Geese Tower as he laughs, taking solace in the fact that he would rather choose death on his own terms than accept a life that is saved at the hands of a Bogard. Terry is left with no other choice but to watch as Geese Howard, his sworn enemy and the killer of his father, falls to his death, finally putting an end to both their rivalry and the evil reign of Geese and his criminal empire. With the latest King of Fighters tournament having ended with a shocking conclusion, those involved are left with no other choice but to go back to their normal lives, where they must now figure out what to do next in a world that no longer has Geese Howard in it. Following Geese's death, Andy Bogard and Mai Shiranui bid their friends farewell and prepare for their return to Japan, no longer having to worry about the fate of Southtown with Geese no longer around to threaten the city and its people. On the plane ride home, Andy reflects on his conflicted feelings regarding the death of Geese, being content that the crime lord has paid for his murder of Jeff Bogard, but also upset that his death prevents him from facing true justice. Upon their return to Japan, Andy and Mai are met by an excited Jubei Yamada who rushes to greet the pair. Later that night, Mai takes a bath while fantasizing about one day marrying Andy now that his quest to take down Geese Howard is over with, hoping that this new era of peace can finally allow them to do so. Andy meanwhile meditates under a waterfall where he contemplates his true feelings on Geese's death, as well as what the future holds for himself, Mai and the Shiranui style. With the chaos of the tournament over with, Duck King feels that Southtown is finally free to be the bustling hub it once was. To celebrate, he gathers as many friends as he can to have a big party at the Pow Pow Cafe 2, where he celebrates until he passes out, happy to once again be able to have some fun. As the celebrations go on, Bob Wilson happily bartends for Duck King and his friends. Once the party wraps up and everyone leaves, Bob sleeps peacefully at the bar, no longer having to worry about protecting his beloved Pow Pow Cafe from the forces of evil. Li Zhangfei returns to her work as a waitress at her uncle's restaurant when she sees a patron run away without paying. Zhang Fei chases after the Dine and Dasher and pins him down, but soon abandons him after being distracted by an ongoing street fight nearby, excited at having another chance to show off her strength. With his boss and father figure dead, Billy Khan is left to pick up the remnants of the now defunct Howard connection. However, he first clears up some unfinished business with Joe Higashi by kidnapping Lily from him while the two are together, with him still refusing to allow his sister to date his enemy. With his sister now back in what he feels are safe hands, Billy decides to look ahead to the future, planning to rebuild the Howard connection while taking care of Geese's affairs now that he is gone. With Lily back in the custody of Billy, Joe decides to return home to Thailand where he is given a hero's welcome by the local children. Joe then relaxes with the other locals and his old friend Hua Jai, no longer concerned about having to deal with the forces of Geese and free to focus on building the legend of Joe Hurricane Upper Higashi even higher. Following the tournament's conclusion, Franco Bash resumes his rigorous training regimen as he prepares for his return to the pro kickboxing circuit, now having the freedom to return to his glory days as the undefeated champion. Rick Stroud's lover waits patiently for him to return home when she finally sees him arrive on horseback. Having found the answers he had sought during his journey across the country, Rick finally reunites with his lover and rides off with her into the sunset, finally content at his lot in life. With no other reason to stay in Southtown following the tournament, Kim Kap-won and his sons make their return home to Korea, running into Hon Fu on the plane back. Upon their return home, Kim is given a warm welcome by his family and students as he begins preparing to teach Taekwondo to the next generation. With Geese Tower now abandoned, Jin Chonrei and Jin Chonshu break into Geese's office where they find their family's Jin Scrolls, with Billy having kept the scrolls rather than destroy them like Geese had ordered him to. To the shock of Chonshu, Chonrei destroys the Jin Scrolls, preventing anyone, good or evil, from using their power for their own gain. Now completely free from the weight of their family's history, the brothers soon find themselves under the care of Tung Fu Ru and begin training under him. However, Chonshu often finds himself being defended from local bullies by his older brother and decides to part ways with him in order to learn to stand on his own 2 feet. In order to do so, Chonshu travels to Korea and meets with Kim Kap-won to ask him to be his master. Kim decides to accept Chonshu as his student and begins training him alongside his sons and other apprentices. As Chonshu learns the art of Taekwondo, he thinks of his brother and looks forward to the next time they meet. Chonrei, meanwhile, dives even deeper into his training with Tung Fu Ru, learning and bonding with the old master as they train and live together, with Tung Fu Ru growing to enjoy once again having a student to teach. With the Jin Scrolls now destroyed for good, Sokaku Mochizuki leaves Southtown and returns home where he reunites with his fellow monks. With his mission successful and content that a great evil has been banished from the world, Sokaku takes a well-earned rest in the bath where he enjoys showing off his powers to the younger monks. Having been unable to obtain the Jin Scrolls for himself, Ryuji Yamazaki returns to his black market dealings where he supplies weapons to a growing army. However, the deal is interrupted by Hon Fu, who has managed to track Yamazaki down. Yamazaki flees from Hon Fu, who gives chase, but the clumsy detective falls over at the last second, allowing the smug Yamazaki to escape and continue his crime spree across the world. Embarrassed and frustrated at his failure to apprehend Yamazaki, Hon Fu returns home empty-handed with his girlfriend Brenda, where he tries to get his mind off Yamazaki. However, Hon Fu sees someone similar to Yamazaki and tries to apprehend them, unaware that he is simply an innocent bystander. With Geese's criminal empire dealt a seemingly unsurvivable blow and her grandfather avenged, Blue Mary leaves Southtown on her motorcycle, content that Terry and the others can look after Southtown themselves. Mary soon returns to her career as a freelance investigator where she continues to take down multiple crime rings. Despite her hard days at work, however, Mary still manages to find the time to order her late lover Butch's favourite drink, shedding a tear as she thinks of Butch and her deceased loved ones. After witnessing the death of Geese Howard, a heavy-hearted Terry makes his way back to Southtown where he runs into Rock. However, Terry soon learns the shocking truth. The boy he knows as Rock is actually Rock Howard, the son of Geese and a woman named Marie Heinlein. After his mother had fallen ill, Rock tried to get Geese to help her, but the crime lord refused and Marie soon died, filling Rock with an intense hatred of his father. Realising that his vendetta for Jeff's murder has inadvertently made Rock an orphan like himself and Andy, Terry feels an immense mixture of guilt and obligation towards the boy and decides to take him under his wing. Rock agrees to join Terry, the complicated mix of loneliness and joy he feels for his father's death removing any hatred he should have for Terry, the one responsible for it. Though he initially has reservations about taking care of the son of his enemy and the man he failed to save, Terry grows to develop a deep bond with Rock similar to that of a father and son, similar to the one that Jeff Bogard had with the young Terry and Andy. Soon the two become inseparable and begin a journey across the country together, never leaving the other's side from that point on. Before they know it, time passes the two by, and eventually the year is 2006, 10 years after Geese's death and the mark of a new era of hungry wolves.
await your return, warrior.